Dear child, this is a spiritual reflection, not a prediction. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Dear child, something deep and serious has shifted. It feels as if heaven has leaned closer, not in noise or drama, but in quiet authority. The atmosphere around you has changed because a long silence finally broke. What was held back, avoided, or pushed aside could no longer stay hidden. A wall fell, a weight lifted, and because of that, everything feels different now. For a long time, there were people who never spoke about you. They noticed you, but chose not to acknowledge you. They heard your name, but avoided the conversation. When your presence stirred something in their home, they stayed quiet, changed the subject, or shut it down quickly. Not because you were unimportant, but because your name carried a depth they weren't ready to face. You represented truth, clarity, and something real, and that made them uncomfortable. But silence can only last for so long. Pressure builds when truth is resisted. Something happened behind closed doors that forced honesty to rise. Someone finally spoke. Someone said your name out loud, and when they did, it shocked the room because no one expected it. The atmosphere shifted instantly because truth carries weight. Once it enters a space, it settles there. It doesn't fade away easily. What they said wasn't casual. It wasn't small talk. It was real. It carried clarity. And once spoken, it could not be taken back. The moment those words left their mouth, something irreversible happened. The lie weakened. The avoidance cracked. The delay lost its power. They thought they had more time. Time to avoid choosing. Time to stay neutral. Time to pretend nothing needed to be decided. But it feels like God stepped in and overruled the delay. The silence had an expiration date, and that moment arrived. The conversation could no longer be postponed. You need to understand something clearly. You were always significant, even when they denied it. Even when they acted like you didn't matter, your presence was still felt. Even in your absence, something about you remained in the room. Some of them were afraid of that, not of you personally, but of what you represent. Peace, depth, truth, spiritual weight. People often resist what they don't fully understand. Now they are starting to see. They are remembering things they pushed aside, moments, feelings, signs, even dreams. They are connecting dots they once ignored, and that realization is shaking them because it confirms what they tried to deny for so long. Your patience mattered. Your restraint mattered. Your silence was not weakness. It was wisdom. You didn't fight for approval. You didn't argue your worth. You didn't demand to be chosen. You allowed time and truth to speak for you. And now truth is speaking in rooms you were never invited into. Someone defended you. Someone corrected the narrative. Someone said, "That's not who they are." Someone admitted, "We don't actually know the full story." Those few words carried power. They softened hearts. They opened minds. They created space where there was once resistance. This shift didn't just affect conversation. It affected decisions. It affected courage. It affected the person you are connected to. For a long time, they may have felt torn between what they felt in their heart and what they feared from others. They may have held back not because love was absent, but because they feared conflict, rejection, or standing alone. But when the people around them begin to soften, fear loses its grip. The weight lifts. The decision becomes clearer. The door that once felt sealed begins to open naturally. This is why everything feels like it's moving now. One honest moment can undo years of tension. One voice speaking truth can shift an entire household. What you are sensing is not imagination, it's momentum. The way your name is being spoken has changed. Where it was once spoken with suspicion, it is now spoken with curiosity. Where it was once surrounded by warning, it is now surrounded by reflection. Real questions are being asked. Real thoughts are being considered. Hearts are reconsidering their judgments. This is not coincidence. This is preparation. If you have ever prayed to be received in peace, not tolerated in tension, this reflects that prayer. You didn't want forced acceptance. You wanted calm, honest, grounded welcome. And sometimes, before a connection can move forward, hearts must be softened first. That is why you may feel lighter. That is why there may be a quiet joy inside you that you can't fully explain. Something has shifted around your name. What was hidden is being brought into the open. What was blocked is being loosened. If this involves a soulmate connection, the inner pressure they carried is easing. They no longer feel trapped between love and loyalty. They no longer feel alone in their feelings. Permission has arrived, not spoken directly to you, but spoken into the atmosphere through others. This does not mean everything becomes perfect instantly, but it does mean the direction has changed. The energy has shifted. The fog is lifting. The silence that once felt heavy is gone, and in its place is clarity. You do not need to rush. You do not need to chase. What is aligned will move toward you with peace. What is real will not require you to fight for it. What is meant for you will come with openness, not confusion. Your name is no longer being buried. It is being spoken with weight. And when that happens, movement follows. Doors open. Hearts adjust. Paths straighten. Stay steady. Stay grounded. Let truth continue to work on your behalf. What has begun cannot return to silence again. The angels were present, not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, steady way that brought truth into the room. While they were talking, something deeper than words was happening. It wasn't just conversation. It was clarity. It was honesty finally being allowed to exist without fear. And when it ended, their hearts were no longer restless. The heaviness that had followed them lifted. The uncertainty that kept them silent loosened its grip. For a long time, they stayed quiet because silence felt safer than truth. They were afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of changing everything, afraid of what would happen once the truth was spoken out loud. But there comes a point where silence hurts more than honesty. There is a season for holding back, and there is a season for speaking. This was the season to speak, and when they finally did, when the truth left their mouth, it set everything into motion. Your soulmate felt it immediately. Something inside them broke open, not in pain, but in relief. Fear lost its power. Hesitation no longer had control. The delay that kept them frozen snapped. It was like they had been holding their breath for months, maybe years, and suddenly they could breathe again. Their heart became clear. Their mind became quiet. They knew what they wanted, and for the first time, they were no longer afraid to walk toward it. Now, their thoughts are different. Instead of pushing the future away, they're allowing themselves to imagine it. Commitment doesn't scare them the way it used to. The idea of choosing one person, one path, one future feels grounding instead of restricting. They imagine shared moments, promises, deep conversations, tears of release, laughter, holding hands, and building something that lasts. What once felt forbidden now feels right. What once felt risky now feels blessed. And you are no longer a question in their mind. You are no longer a doubt they wrestle with late at night. You are not a maybe or a what if. You are the answer. You are the place where their heart settles. You are the choice that feels safe, sacred, and true. The love they tried to avoid is now the love they don't want to lose. This shift didn't only happen inside your soulmate. It's happening around them too. Conversations that once avoided your name are starting to include you naturally. Hearts that once felt closed are softening. Opinions that were once fixed are changing without force. It's as if the wind shifted direction. What once felt blocked is now flowing. What once felt tense is now easing. You are not being allowed into spaces anymore. You are being welcomed. You are not being tolerated. You are being respected. You are not being treated like an outsider. You are being seen as someone who belongs. There is a quiet recognition happening where people are beginning to understand that your presence is not random. You matter. You add value. You bring something real. And the most important part is this: you didn't push your way into any of this. You didn't chase approval. You didn't demand validation. You didn't try to control outcomes. You stayed faithful. You stayed calm. You stayed true to yourself. You trusted God even when things were quiet. Even when you didn't know what was being said behind closed doors. Even when it felt like nothing was moving. But heaven was working the entire time. God has a way of changing hearts without arguments. God can soften people where logic fails. God can remove pride where resistance once lived. God can turn misunderstanding into respect. God can make people feel what they once refused to understand. And now you're seeing that transformation unfold. The same people who once looked away are now paying attention. The same people who doubted are now curious. The same people who resisted are now listening. They're starting to feel your spirit, not just observe your actions. They're noticing your calm, your sincerity, your steadiness. They're realizing that you don't bring chaos, pressure, or drama. You bring peace. And peace is powerful. Peace speaks louder than explanations ever could. Your soulmate feels this shift deeply. They feel the room change when your name is mentioned. They sense support growing instead of shrinking. The fear that once held them back is losing its grip. And that support is giving them courage. Courage to stop hiding. Courage to stop delaying. Courage to move from private feelings to real plans. When hearts align, things move faster. When there is blessing, momentum follows. When agreement forms, love stops being a secret and starts becoming visible. What was once uncertain begins to feel inevitable. This isn't just about romance. It's bigger than that. It's about restoration. It's about belonging. It's about building a future that feels stable and protected. It's about love being honored instead of questioned. It's about being received not just by one person, but by the environment around them. God is creating space for you. A space where you can finally exhale, not just with your lungs, but with your soul. A space where your shoulders don't have to stay tense, where your mind doesn't have to stay alert for the next misunderstanding or the next moment you will be questioned. This is a space where you are no longer bracing yourself for rejection, no longer rehearsing explanations in your head, no longer shrinking or stretching just to be tolerated. It is a space where your existence does not require justification, where simply being who you are is already enough. This is a space where you don't have to overthink your presence. You don't have to calculate how you enter a room or soften your truth to make others comfortable. You don't have to measure your words out of fear that honesty might cost you connection. In this space, you are not a burden, not too much, not misunderstood by default. Your energy is allowed to settle naturally. Your silence is respected. Your voice is welcomed. You are not walking on emotional glass anymore. God is creating a space where you don't feel like you need to prove yourself. You don't have to earn love by overgiving. You don't have to perform strength to be valued. You don't have to bleed just to be believed. The endless cycle of trying harder, explaining deeper, showing more, giving more, it ends here. In this space, your worth is not tied to productivity, sacrifice, or perfection. You are valued because you exist, because you carry breath, because you are seen by the one who formed you. This is a space where peace replaces tension, not the fragile kind of peace that disappears the moment someone disagrees with you, but a deep, grounded peace that settles into your nervous system, a peace that doesn't rush you, a peace that doesn't demand answers right away, a peace that allows you to rest without guilt. You no longer feel like something bad is about to happen when things go quiet. Silence becomes safe. Stillness becomes healing. There will likely be a moment when you walk into a room and feel it instantly. The energy will be different. Faces will be softer. Conversations will feel natural. Your name will be spoken with warmth instead of hesitation. And in that moment, your heart will finally relax because you'll know your waiting wasn't wasted. You'll understand that this is what was happening while you stayed patient. You were never too much. You were never the problem. You never needed to shrink, explain, or perform to be worthy of acceptance. Your presence has always been the gift. Your quiet strength has always mattered. Your patience spoke volumes. Your dignity during silence carried weight. Even when you said nothing, your spirit spoke clearly. Even when you stayed still, heaven was moving. Even when you were misunderstood, you were never unseen. Now the reward is showing up in the open. Doors are opening. Tension is dissolving. Silence has surrendered. The path forward is becoming clear. Plans are being made with you included. Your soulmate is no longer trying to hide what they feel. They are ready to love you openly, confidently, and without apology. Because once someone speaks your name in the light, they cannot return to hiding you in the shadows. This is not imagination. This is alignment. This is not wishful thinking. This is movement. This is what happens when God turns hearts in a way no one else can undo. When God decides something, no opinion can cancel it. No delay can stop it. No fear can reverse it. You are stepping into a new chapter, one where what was once withheld is now being released in your favor, one where resistance is turning into readiness, one where uncertainty is turning into peace, one where love that felt stuck is finally moving forward. You endured the hardest part, the waiting, the quiet, the unanswered questions. You trusted God to speak when you chose not to. And now He has. The silence is broken. The atmosphere has shifted. The way is clear. You are no longer the question. You are the answer.